It won't make any difference.
Yes, it won't make any difference whatsoever. Hello, that's me again. Today is June 9th, 2023. It's Friday, and we need to go and look at CTRAP, okay? And the slaughter of the armed forces of Ukraine and other not NATO proxies and NATO arsenal continues on the industrial scale. And as Mr. Putin himself stated, yeah, they started their counteroffensive because they engaged strategic reserves. And there's not much of those reserves out there, really, because they have been really well taken care of prior to this, so to speak, counteroffensive, or offensive, if you wish. I mean, as I already stated, NATO and Ukraine, they kind of inventing new things in the warfare, which professionals only scratch their head, listening to that. But here it is. So this is why it's not going to make any difference. It's yet another photo of all kinds of things which are happening at the front now, which armed forces of Ukraine, it's NATO, mostly American and British advisors cannot break through even the first line of defense of Russians. And as you can see yourself, Bradleys and those Leopard tanks, they are no match for actually modern firepower. So let's go and take a look at the Russian Defense Ministry's CTRAP. Today, as you can see yourself, it's the 9th of June, and if you look attentively at two sectors which are underlined in red, you will see yourself that in the last 24 hours, just rough estimates, armed forces of Ukraine lost at the Zaporozhye sector or axis where they attack non-stop up to 680 KIAs. They also lost 410 KIAs in the Donetsk area, plus they have another something like 150 KIAs elsewhere, and when you put it together, you are again running way above 1,000 KIAs. And just for the last 24 hours, looking at just the number of tanks annihilated, we're looking at least 35 plus 439, and then there's a truckload of other things which they lose in terms of armor and armored vehicles. So there you go. As you can see yourself, this is what is happening right now. They failed to breach the first line of defense. And what the main fight happens in what is called in the gray zone. It's in the zone which is fire controlled by Russians, for example, but there are no Russian troops in it. So this is also the zone of the contact, so to speak. This is where they go in and think that they're within the range of their weapons to engage, for example, Russian defenses. But it's, as I already stated, you cannot engage anything in any meaningful way, when even Vladimir Putin today says, oh my gosh, usually we kind of have this classic ratio 1 to 3 in terms of, correlation of forces, and in terms of the losses, because traditionally it's accepted as the kind of war correlate, if you wish, that you obviously in the offensive action you lose more than the side which defends. But we are looking now, my God, we're looking at horrendous ratios. We're looking at 1 to 30 maybe. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. And that brings us also to the fact that there are many eyewitness accounts easily found all over Russian internet, and we're talking about including official sources. It's the fact that many of those troops, so to speak, are pushed into the battle by the those special detachments of who shoot them into their backs if they don't go on the attack, and they are also drugged. Some of them are drugged. They are so high that's unbelievable. And the Russian service people describe that this gray zone is just littered with wrecked armor and, as they call, 200s and 300s. 300s is the most horrifying thing, because once the drugs wear off and you could sustain the pain from losing some like limb or being heavily wounded, they do not even collect them. And yesterday you can find it also, it was on the even RIA News and other major Russian outlets. You can see yourself that how two VSU guys try to run away to Russians, and Russians already like cheering on them, like, run guys, run, to the, because they want to surrender. And those people from the armed forces of Ukraine, primarily those NATO, so to speak, personnel, and those nationalist, what they call, battalions or what have you, National Guard, they try to kill them, as they shoot and execute people who do not want to go on attack in order to be slaughtered, because it's just not even the theorem, it's an axiom. You go attack Russia, you get killed. And as you saw yourself, there's so many now visual and other evidence out there that what do we even, trying to discuss here. It is clear as the, day of light. And that also brings us to the fact that Mr. Popov, who is the commanding officer or commander of the 58th Army, which fights precisely in the Zaporozhye axis. He stated yesterday that they tried to break through the defense to try to get to the sea. And he also, when speaking about it, he also talks about this is very interesting thing, which is a very tactical, well, it becomes more than just tactical, it's certainly more of the operational level impact when he talked about how they fight and why they cannot break through their even first line of defense of Russian army, and I'll talk about it down a little bit later in this video, but here it is. Here, as you can see yourself, what is highlighted in yellow is called, earlier, Major General pointed out that the highest density of the minefields in the defense of the armed forces of Russia allowed to stop all 4 columns of the Ukrainian troops which tried to attack Russian army. Now you say, good old mines, yes, and Russians have this funny thing. I spoke about it before, and the name of the thing is called, земледелие, which is literally taking care of ground, or agriculture. As you can see yourself, this agriculture thing is actually the remote mining machine vehicle, which has the 2 packages, 25 each, of their missiles, each of them carrying all kinds of different mines, whatever you want, and altogether 50 of them, and they can shoot and lay minefields at this range from 5 to 15 kilometers. This is a terrifying vehicle because it is highly mobile and it is really fast. In other words, you can actually create minefield out of nothing within like 5-10 minutes once you decide where you want to put it. And then of course, you can maneuver the enemy group, especially armor, into this minefield, and then just let them kind of be in disarray, as I showed you all those Bradleys and Leopard tanks, and then basically just annihilate them. This is classic tactics now for Russians, and believe me, they've been doing this for a long time. But now you have those wonderful tools. I mean, wonderful from military point of view, in terms of their actually the loss of life and damage to the enemy. It's horrendous. The only good thing about it is that the mines which Russians used are designed such a way that they do not stay armed for decades or even hundreds of years. No, they self annihilate after the certain time period, which is, I don't know, what it could be, couple of months or something like that. But in any case, this agriculture machine is a really funny little thingy, which Russians started to receive it in the industrial quantities starting from 2020. So by now, very many Russian units, they do have it as their support engineering vehicles, and my God, engineering it does. And so when you look at this and you begin to kind of observe this whole situation, then you have this other thing. And yeah, it was yesterday, and as Newt from the Masterpiece Alien says, it won't make any difference. It means absolutely no difference. This is another one, German Iris-T air defense system. What is this air defense system? It was of course obliterated 2 days ago by Russian Lancet drones. They blew out first the radar and then the system, one of the, command vehicle, and that was it. And this was another those Wunderwaffe, literally from Germany. And what is this Iris-T air defense system? You know what? It's same old beaten to death NATO idea of getting air-to-air missile and sticking it into the ground launcher, then plug it into the radar and seeing if it will be able to intercept Russian standoff weapons. It cannot. And that's what doesn't make difference, especially when you have people like Mr. Biden, who says that, yeah, we've done everything for Ukraine, you know, we've done everything we could collectively but individually in the United States to make them ready to support. Biden told reporters on Thursday in a joint press briefing with Sunak in Washington. He called Kyiv faltering attempts to mount an attack an evolving situation where we are very optimistic. Yes, even CNN is optimistic. Yeah, so much that on Thursday they admitted that troops were meeting greater than expected resistance. First, I need to point out there's nobody, zero people in CNN or for that matter in the Biden team, including some military people who expected greater than expected resistance because they have no clue what they're dealing with. And to explain to you that those people in Washington are absolutely unqualified and they do not understand what is happening, including his military advisors, many of them anyway. Mark Milley, it's a separate story, but primarily when you look at this, here's another guy. He is a veteran of Afghanistan war. He is like commanded in, the platoon there. So he is what it's called American hero. Obviously the guy, he is actually Representative Jason Crow, and he started to advocate together with a number of other clueless bimbos from Congress that Ukraine needs advanced capabilities to help sustain their efforts in the long term and control the skies. That's why we ask POTUS to send fourth generation fighter aircraft and long-range missile system to Ukraine. Now's the time to lean in. So I understand the guy, he is a lawyer by education. He did 2 or 3 tours in Afghanistan, which has nothing to do with the combined arms or multi-domain operation because they were fighting the militias armed with AK-47 and RPG-7. And when this guy who has zero clue, he commanded platoon without any serious military education, probably going through the ROTC or whatever the hell he decided to do, he doesn't even understand what modern multi-domain operations are. He has zero background in it. And I get it, yeah, he's veteran, he is, all that, I saw, those Mujahideen, I saw the Taliban. Yeah, you called Crow's air support, and that was pretty much it. But the real war, they don't have any understanding of the real war out there. And I'm talking about Washington, be them top, bottom. They really do not have the handle on it. They have no reference points from the emotional or cognitive point of view because you have to understand what you're dealing with. Okay, we have Mr. Schaefer, I believe he is a major of whatever, the Defense Intelligence Agency, some kind of special forces guy, or Green Beret or Ranger, what have you. And he was speaking to Judge Napolitano a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, and the topic of their conversation was the fact that actually Biden's team is clueless. Well, it is, but we have to also stress, I need to stress, and I want to point out to the fact why they do not understand that whatever they send there will make no difference. Russians are sitting there saying, yeah, bring it on, guys. You want ATACMS? Okay, send in ATACMS. They will be shut down, most of them. And fact is, they don't have the range to reach Moscow, as many of those, absolutely mad and incompetent congressmen and senators want to, because they want Russians to die in industrial quantities. There's nothing which makes them more joyful than see Russian civilians killed. I mean, because this is their basically level of understanding of the outside world, and most of them, not all, but very many of them are sociopaths, and they do not understand anything about real war. They also do not understand, once they engage Russia in the strategic kind of level, that they will be gone, their families will be gone, their favorite places, cities, villages, they will be gone. They don't understand that. American average politician has no clue about anything related to military, including those guys who went through Afghanistan or whatever, Iraq. I mean, if they think that this is the war, good God, I mean, they better wake up. And when you begin to look at where this is coming from, why they still consider the SAM the best fighting force, or finest fighting force in the history, I mean, when you are so ignorant, when you're so isolated and insulated from real warfare, I mean, what do you expect? You have literally no experience, cultural experience, which ties you together with those events. Unlike it is, for example, with Russians. Every Russian family lost somebody. Has the veteran who fought in the World War II, who were fighting at the, in the killing fields of the first phases of war in 1941. As one of my grandfathers died there near Donetsk in 1941, being killed by Wehrmacht, and then you, of course, fighting at Stalingrad, fighting at Kursk, and then taking Berlin. Those people don't have relations to it. They cannot even project it. They don't understand what death is. They have no clue. Take, as I already stated, no American serviceman, none, ever, fought in defense of their homeland. I'm talking about modern history, of course, because there will be now a bunch of the commenters, running into the comment section saying, oh, but what about 1814? First, the United States was actually the aggressor in this case, and then, of course, please, let's not go into the battalion level engagement, considering it's a battle, which in itself, the whole other story about how Russians, for example, rank their engagements. And believe me, they have different definitions for all kinds of them, from simple battle on the level of the platoon to actually general battle of when you have the basically strategic outcome of the campaign or the war hanging in the balance there. And that brings us to the fact which I wanted to point out to you, and why I constantly speak about that. Well, they kind of not necessarily understand what is going on, That is why when, for example, they promise this, like U.S. preparing another $2 billion in arms for Ukraine. The new aid package will include 2 types of Patriot missiles, the Patriot Advanced Capability Missile PAC-3 and the Guidance Enhanced Missile produced by Raytheon, and blah, on and on and on. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't make any difference. The reason it doesn't make any difference because this is the technology which is not designed to fight a real war. And then we're gonna go to understand what I'm talking about. Let's start our short review of the fundamental publications of the US Army, for example. And if you want to start kind of getting some idea about it, you can go and look at the publication from 2020, which is there for one of the Army tactical publications, which is Stryker Brigade Combat Team Infantry Rifle Company, where they really describe the thing, how that should operate. And let me tell you, I mean, generally speaking, it's obviously professional publication. It's a dry, language of their tactics and operations and things of that nature. It's absolutely normal. Russian documents are the same like that. And what is good, for example, in this Striker Striker Battalion, not Battalion, Brigade Combat Team, you can see yourself that they start with organization and capabilities. It's a classic professional document which has many analogs, for example, in Russia, and they give a good definitions of everything, and then look what they get immediately into. Operational and mission variables. They talk about that analysis include for the operational variables and comprehensive set of information categories used to define an operational environment. Information categories are political, military, economic, social, informational infrastructure, physical environment, and time. Obviously, they reference you to other Army doctrine publications, which we will see shortly. But the point is, immediately when you look at this, what is underlined here, United States cannot do. The reason, I mean, it can do it, it's just that it cannot get it right. And it couldn't get it right for the last 75 years. Well, not 75, well, yeah, 75 years. They absolutely are not competent people there who can do appropriate information categories, political, military, economic, social. They just cannot do this. They don't have the tool kit. Because, for example, just to give you one example, when you have the economic background from the American Ivy League economic institutions, be the Ivy League or what have you, it doesn't really matter. You automatically do not have proper toolkit to assess anything economically. And we already saw it manifest itself so many times. I'm not talking about culturally. There are no people who understand what culture is, although you might remember a couple decades ago the idea of the cultural terrain have been floated around the armed forces, United States armed forces, but it died out. Then, of course, we go to the next page of the thing and look what they write. Threat capabilities and techniques. This is at the company level, which is the part of the Striker Brigade Combat Team. Current and future enemies and adversaries seek to counter U.S. advantage of information collection capabilities, long-range precision fires, armor protection and mobility, communications, and combined arms integration by employing a series of integrated tactical and technical countermeasures. And they begin to describe it, but here's again, this is the latest document from on the basically brigade level. Can you tell me, please, what's wrong with this picture? Oh, I can tell you what's wrong in the picture. They talk about some kind of the U.S. advantage which is not there. While in terms of information collection, United States certainly one of the best, no doubt about the ISR is extremely extensive. I'm sorry, what is long-range precision fires by the United States? What is armor protection and mobility? Communications and combined arms integration? Well, United States doesn't have it. Russia certainly is much better on that because Russia has historically the issue of the scale of which the United States never encountered in its life. So I will basically refer you back to Mr. Cavoli in January this year, who stated we never saw anything like this of this scale. Absolutely, but Russians integrate much better. And then we go in terms of the long range and standoff weapons. United States is not even in the same league. This is the reality which they have to really rewrite in this stupid document, because obviously what they tell to people, to officers who will be reading this on the brigade and company level studying these documents, if they are real professionals, they will be laughing at those statements. Because I'm sorry, does United States have something like Zircon? No. Does the United States has anything? Does the United States have anything something like Iskander? No. Do they have 3M14? No. Do they have X101, especially the newer versions, which are coming and to be 10,000 kilometer with the 10,000 kilometer range cruise missile? No. And when you begin to look at this, I mean, what are they talking about? And especially communications. Have the United States ever fought in environment which has extremely dense electronic warfare environment? No, they're only learning this now when they have actually, and I quote my friend Marat Khairulin, who is on the front lines practically non-stop. Basically what happens, those people commanded and controlled by all those NATO advisors who never fought and never won anything in their life, and then suddenly they command and kind of move those columns and begin to kind of try to attack in the gray zone. Guess what? They have immediately communications suppressed and all kinds of signals suppressed. They lose control, command and control, and there you go, and they are annihilated. And there you go. Even American generals such as Ben Hodges, of all people, and Philip Breedlove at some point of time, they admitted that electronic warfare capabilities of Russia are unmatched. I mean, and you begin to look at this and say, why do they even put this in there? Of course, the United States has advantage over countries such as Iraq, for example. But I mean, other than that, what are we talking about? And then you go actually to the American U.S. Army, what is called the doctrine publication, much more serious, more level of the, it's called Operations. It's the October 2022. And this is a wonderful document in terms of that. This one is really good. It's written in the language, which of course gives you the impression that the United States has it. No, it doesn't have it, and they do not claim to have it. They're just saying that setting the targets which they need to, which you need to actually have, so to speak, objectives which you need to have achieved for the armed forces. That's why the language talks about it as if it's already happened, as fait accompli, but in reality just not. We must have, and things like that. So you have to, when you read this, pretty much interpreted this way. And they give really good things, introduction, for example, into the operations, for example, as you can see yourself, the language. Army leaders are accustomed to creating and exploiting relative advantages. Okay, we're finally getting the relative advantages, the much more nuanced definition, and you can also looking at this, you can see yourself how they describe things in terms of the foundation of operations. Army forces therefore require timely, accurate, relevant, and predictive intelligence to understand threat characteristics, capabilities, objectives, and course of action. And here we have this pretty much what we discussed already. American intelligence, and especially strategic level intelligence, sucks for all intents and purposes. It doesn't exist at all, because everything what is being floated around, for example, Washington, or on the political and strategic level, is basically it's mythology, misinformation, wishful thinking. Those people have no clue actually what is happening around them, and as such it reflects on the U.S. armed forces, who are at the basically mercy of United States military-industrial complex, which completely refuses and cannot. They don't have the capability to develop appropriate weapon system and operate and integrate them properly on the tactical, operational, and strategic level. So, and you already saw yourself what NATO arsenal experiences now. It doesn't matter. It will make any difference whatever they will supply to Ukraine. It will be looked for, detected, and annihilated. Simple as that. And then we go further into the definitions of precisely this field manual. And here we go to this wonderful definition of other foundations, war and warfare. And here, by the way, where the United States fails miserably. So as doctrine for the conduct of operations begins with the view of war and warfare that includes, and look at this, nature of war. I don't know a single war which United States ever understood in terms of the nature of war. But this actually is taught in Russian, and it was taught in Soviet military academies from the get-go, from the very start, from the inception, from the tactical level. So there you go. And if you look attentively at wonderful victories of the US Army in Afghanistan or Iraq, obviously they never had a clue about the nature of war there. Now, they go again to the characteristics, principles of war. Well, principles of war more or less is understood, but characteristics of warfare. How can you have characteristics of warfare and understanding of them when you already saw yourself? Those people still think that ATACMS or PAC-3, new PAC-3 missiles will make any difference. They will not, because United States simply is designed, and the whole warfare and doctrinal and technological view of the United States is stuck in 1980s and 1990s. They definitely have no ability to really fight modern warfare without sustaining catastrophic losses in personnel and material. So they go now about large-scale combat operations. Again, what is the large-scale combat operations? I refer you back to Mr. Cavoli, the Supreme Commander of the NATO forces in Europe. He says we had never saw anything like this, what is happening right now in Ukraine. And then, of course, Army strategic context. Yeah, I don't think so anybody can understand the strategic context on the political level in the both United States Army and political top. And, well, some do, like Mark Milley, who actually admitted yesterday at the graduation ceremony of the National Defense Institute that there are only 3 superpowers in the world right now. It's United States, China, and, well, guess what? Russia. Well, good. They finally recognize this simple thing. But, of course, the more you go into those doctrinal documents, you suddenly begins to get into the neck of the woods, and look what they write. They write about counter-air and missile threats. Counter-air is a theater mission that integrates offensive and defensive operations to establish and maintain a desired degree of control of the air by neutralizing or destroying enemy aircraft and missiles, both on the ground and in the air. These operations may include the use of Army manned or unmanned aircraft, long-range fires, maneuver forces, special operations, space operations, and so on and so on. And they talk about that encompasses active and passive defenses actions taken to destroy, nullify, or reduce the effectiveness of hostile air and missile threats against friendly forces and assets. The US Army and NATO absolutely have no capability to do this in the modern standoff, hypersonic and high supersonic environment. Zilch, you already saw yourself there. All those air defense complexes are being wiped out, on very systematically, and it doesn't matter how many will be there. Russia produces enough hypersonic missiles to wipe them all out. And then, of course, here comes Army Air Defense Artillery Forces, and they are talking about SHORAD, which are stingers placed on the Humvees. You know what? This is not even serious. And if they think that the United States, whose whole doctrine is built on the air power domination, which it will not have, and they think that they can conduct those combined arms operations, you cannot. And that's what is interesting. You begin to take those doctrinal or tactical level publications and you begin to read them and like, wow. It's unbelievable. They literally, not that they live in the alternative universe, but there is no doubt that they thought at that time they have those means. They don't. And those tools which the Western world, so to speak, Western civilization has at its disposal, once you remove out of consideration strategic nuclear weapons, which of course is a very serious threat. What do they have? They have nothing which will make any difference, both in quantity and especially in quality. And the worst part of this for them right now, yeah, they try to learn some lessons, especially air operations. Good luck going against Russian Air Force and Russian air defense. You just cannot overcome it. and we saw it already demonstrated. Yeah, you get leaker, pinprick here and there, like for example attacking today with the Storm Shadow missile children's camp. Well, that's, what can I say, this is what they do. This is the only thing they can do. And this was my Friday sit rep to you guys, so to speak. And I could continue here on and on. This is all this operational strategic talk, but I don't see the necessity to continue it today any more than I already said to you. And as always, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel, and those who can afford, please support me on the Patreon or buy me a coffee or two. And I want to express my profound gratitude to my wonderful patrons. They know who they are, guys. You are too numerous for me to sit and basically name all your names, but I know who you are. Thank you so much for your support. Have a nice weekend, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.